أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بفضل الله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خير خلق الله أجمعين محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في محكم كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنما وليكم الله ورسوله والذين آمنوا الذين يقيمون الصلاة ويؤتون الزكاة وهم راكعون. صدق الله العلي العظيم. And surely your guardian is Allah and His Prophet and those who have belief, the ones who uphold the prayer and give the alms while they're in the state of genuflection. Firstly, we give our condolences to the Holy Imam Al-Jaafari Sharif and the respected scholars and brothers and sisters on the demise and martyrdom of Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Ridha. On this night we commemorate the martyrdom of this great Imam and remember a little bit of the knowledge that we learn from the great Imam. There's so much to speak about with the Imam salawatullahi alayhi and the knowledge that we can learn from him and his akhlaq and the knowledge that he imparted onto the Islamic world. He was known as Al-Ridha. Some say because Al-Ridha and Al-Radi. They say because everybody, and Ridha basically means the one who Allah is pleased with or people are pleased with. Because everyone was pleased with the Imam. Because when he gained the status of Wali al-Ahd, as we mentioned in last night's lecture, that Al-Ma'mun placed him in the position of being the heir apparent, everybody had to give bay'ah to him. And they all gave the bay'ah to him that after Al-Ma'mun, you will be the Imam. That's firstly. Secondly, we spoke about the fact that at that time, knowledge became very open and very free. And people, as of the after effects of Bayt al-Hikmah, the house of wisdom, had that ability to bring forth every type of knowledge towards the Islamic world and the world in general. And so through these means, Al-Ma'mun used to invite the best scholars of every religion, of every faith, of every belief, even people of multiple and different philosophies, and bring them to debate against the Imam. And the Imam would always come back with a sound conclusion. He debated with the atheists and the Catholics and the Jews and the Christians and the people who followed Greek philosophy. And even there was a movement of atheism. At the time, people were turning towards, why should we believe in a God or there is no God? And they got all of these strange ideas from the books that were translated at the time of Harun. And people who'd come up with these sorts of ideas and they would put them forth, and the Imam always answered in a sound manner. And this is why he was known as Al-Ridha, because they were all pleased with him and understood his status as the most worshipful, A'badun Nas of his time, the most honorable, Ashraf al-Nas, wa Ahkam al-Nas, the most wise of the people of his era, the most generous of the people of his era. It's narrated that the Imam, one day he was walking and a poor man came up to him and he said, "Give me out of your kindness." And the Imam said, "I cannot afford to give you out of my kindness." He says, "Then give me out of my own." The beggar says, "Give me to the amount or to the value of my kindness and generosity." The Imam gives him 200 dinars. But he says, "As for you at the time, I don't have this amount that can quantify my love and affection towards the people who are poor or towards the people who don't have these abilities." This is the personality of this Imam. Our eighth holy Imam carried such a high character, and we spoke about we had a discussion last night about some of the qualities of his debates, and some of the things I'd rather not repeat only because I'm sure the people have heard them before from last night. However, of the things that we learn from the akhlaq of the Imam was the fact that whenever he sat down to eat, he always gathered the people around to come and be with him. Other than this, he had the look of prophethood. He had the stance of prophethood. In fact, one of the reasons that led Al-Ma'mun to poison Imam Al-Ridha, there was many reasons, but one of the core reasons was on the day of Eid, the Imam came out dressed in his turban and he looked like Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The people saw him, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. They saw him, and within him they saw Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so they followed him, and he began to say the takbir of the Eid, Allahu Akbar, and the people started to repeat Allahu Akbar. They say that the amount of people that started to repeat, they felt as if the walls, the inanimate objects, the trees, everything around him was repeating Allahu Akbar with him. The Ma'mun got so scared, he said, send him home. Send him home, because if he continues and makes it to the masjid, I will have no dominion. I will have no kingdom. My kingship will be destroyed. It's clear. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, the Holy Quran, قَدْ تَبَيَّنَ الرُّشْدُ مِنَ الْغَيِّ, that truth is clear from falsehood. When they see the Imam, hear the knowledge of the Imam, there's no argument for the other guy. But the problem is, as Imam Ali alayhi salam says, وَلَكِنْ سَمَعُوهَا وَوَعَوْهَا وَلَكِنْ حَلِيَتَ الدُّنْيَا بِأَعْيُنِهِم, that they heard it and they understood it by Allah. That they heard what Rasulullah said about me. Amir al-Mu'mineen sallallahu alayhi, this is who we're talking about. However, the dunya was too sweet in their eyes. In the same way, Al-Ma'mun saw who the Imam is. How many a time did he bring questions to him to try and destroy the Imam? He'll go and ask him questions that people commonly ask, and some of the questions were excellent, and the way the Imam answers them, he just completely destroys the argument of Ma'mun. He comes and asks him, aren't the prophets infallible? Yes, the prophets are infallible. Then why did Nabi Adam alayhi salam eat from the tree? And so Imam Al-Ridha answers him by firstly saying this, the final destination of Nabi Adam was earth. And this is something that happened that was outside the realm of earth, outside the realm of judgment, therefore he maintains his infallibility. Number one. Number two, he says the plant that he ate from isn't the plant that God told him not to, but a type of plant that's like the plant that God told him not to eat from. Number three, that Iblis swore by Allah, and Nabi Adam had never heard or ever thought anyone would swear in the name of Allah, take oath in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His greatness by lying. And this is why, this is of the reasons that Nabi Adam salawatullah alayhi, so he quickly shut down that argument and many other arguments. وَلَقَدْ هَمَّتْ بِهِ وَهَمَّ بِهَا. And even to this day, people in the story of Nabi Yusuf, they say that in this verse in the Holy Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that Zulaykha, she went towards Yusuf, she wanted to commit sin with Yusuf, Nabi Yusuf alayhi salam, and the verse says, وَلَقَدْ هَمَّتْ بِهِ وَهَمَّ بِهَا, that he wanted also to go towards her with sin. So they say Nabi Yusuf wanted to sin with her, except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed him the truth. So Al-Ma'mun asks Imam Al-Ridha, Imam Al-Ridha says no. She wanted to do this with him, Nabi Yusuf wanted to kill her. That if she was going to come close enough to commit this deed with her, he would have killed her. This was the hum of Nabi Yusuf. That he went forth towards her and she went forth towards him. His intention was, if she will force me into this act, because she locked 7 doors behind him. 7 doors behind him so he can't leave. So the Imam answers Al-Ma'mun and many more of these questions. But one of the core things about the Holy Imam salawatullah alayhi is he gave this ultimate proof of his imamah and the importance of imamah, the importance of the wilayah to the imam. That the faith is a package. With everything in life, we agree that there's right and there's wrong. With everything in life, we agree that there is one right path and everything else is the incorrect path. And no matter what it is that you want to do in life, there is a right way to go about it, and there's about 5 million wrong ways to go about it. And you look at it, if you want to get married, for example, there's a right way to go about it. Seek out a good spouse, you follow the laws that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taught us about, the importance of selecting a good spouse, so on and so forth. And obviously it's not the topic for tonight. But just if we look at it from a superficial perspective, we see that there is one right way to go about it. And this is to follow that protocol. and to have a look and say, all right, I need to find somebody that has these specifications, somebody, for example, who is pious, somebody who is similar to myself in terms of that they want to get nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then you go and you seek the permission in the correct manner. However, is there incorrect ways? There's a million incorrect ways. A million, too many for me to list. But there's the one correct way. In the same way, when we look at faith, there is that one correct way. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He mentions in the Holy Quran about specifically about wilayat Ahlul Bayt, when He speaks about wilayah, He always speaks about it as one. إنما وليكم الله ورسوله والذين آمنوا. That it's the one wilayah. That is the wilayah of Allah. The guardianship of Allah is also the guardianship of the Prophet, is also the guardianship of الذين آمنوا, the Ahlul Bayt, clearly. Without a fragment of a doubt. That wilayah is always one. Allahu waliyul ladina amanu. But then when He speaks about the guardianship of the devil, in Ayatul Kursi, what does He say? وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا أَوْلِيَاءَهُمْ الطَّاغُوتِ. They have many guardians. They have many of them. Not one. That there's many false ways, there's many incorrect ways, there's many demonic ways, but there's only one way of truth. And this is what this verse is about. That guardianship of Allah is the same as all of that. This is why in the famous golden tradition or the golden narration, and when the Imams used to narrate, obviously each Imam had inherent knowledge that Allah had given them. That their knowledge wasn't necessarily knowledge that they were taught by the Imam before them. Their father would narrate some things to them, but some of them there was such a short time frame between the two, that after that Imam died, he was at such a young age. For example, the Imam of our time was, how old was he? 6, 7 years old. 5 years old, they say some. But I think he was about 6 or 7 years old when our Imam took the position of his Imam. And his father had gone. So how did he learn this message? All the stories of Imam Al-Jawad alayhi salam. We hear about this Imam, and we hear about him at such a young age, and they attempt to teach him, or they attempt to debate with him, and he answers them back at such a young age. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives him this, what is called ilham, divine inspiration, is placed into the Imam, and he has this knowledge, to debate and to tell them. They say that when the Imam Al-Ridha salawatullah alayhi was on his way to Mashhad, that he passed through Naishapur or Nisapur. He passed through Naishapur and he stopped, and the people immediately, when they see him, they know what they are seeing. The problem is we have a veil of concealment over our hearts. It's similar to when we read the Holy Quran. It's similar to when we read the dua. We sit down and we read the dua, such beautiful and deep words with deep meaning that we have no comprehension of. Even though you ask someone, you know what this means? Allahumma inni as'aluka bi rahmatika allati wasa'at kulla shay. You said, do you understand what this means? And they say, yeah, of course, the mercy of Allah has a limitless expanse. But do you understand the words that you are saying? No, because my heart has a veil over it. Because I was to actually think about, what does this actually mean? The expanse of everything, limitless expanse, this mercy that I'm speaking of. Ilahi wa sayyidi malli ghayruk, for example. These words are the sweetest small sentence. That you're saying, oh Allah, with everything that I've said in this dua, I have no other than you. Who am I going to turn to? You're the one that I turn to. I have no one else to turn to. Who else has the power? Who do I have other than you? Who am I going to call unto? When it really gets tough, who do I call unto? Other than you. That these words contain such depth, however, we don't have them in the same way they see Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Ridha. They tell him, stop, Ya ibn Rasulullah. Straight away they see, they understand. He has this within his face. He has this within his gait. The way that he stands and the way that he walks, the way that he speaks. They see him from afar and they know this is a person of high spirituality. Ibn Rasulullah, stop and tell us something that you have learnt from your grandfather. And so he stops with the people of Naishapur, and what does he tell them? He gives them the famous hadith, or one of the famous hadiths of the golden narration, that he says, I heard of my father, who heard of his father, who heard of his father, till he gets to Ali ibn Abi Talib, who heard it of his brother, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He says, I heard him say that kalimat la ilaha illallah husni. وَمَنْ دَخَلَ فِي حُسْنِي أَمِنَ مِنْ عَذَابِي. That the words La ilaha illallah, the words there is no deity but Allah is my fortress, and whomsoever enters my fortress is safe from my punishment. He gets back on his riding animal and walks a few steps, and then he stops and he gets down again. And he says to them, وَلَكِنْ, however, بِشَرْطِهَا وَشُرُوطِهَا وَأَنَا مِنْ شُرُوطِهَا. That he tells them this concept of La ilaha illallah. There's nur in knowing that there is Allah. But there is no nur in accepting Allah, but not accepting what comes after Allah. And this is what we see today. It's relevant to us in the modern world that these people who claim to be Muslims and commit atrocities are people that are hypocritical. Are people that claim they have the belief in Allah, but they want nothing after Allah. In other words, I like the concept of this all-powerful being that is above us. However, I want to dictate what the all-powerful being says. Where's the logic in that? The Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen famously says, المؤمن لا يأخذ دينه عن رأيه ولكن آتاه من ربه فأخذه. He says that the believer does not take his religion from his own opinion, however it came to him from his Lord, and he accepted it. The Imam is telling you the words of La ilaha illallah have conditions. When they walk around saying Allahu Akbar, these words have conditions. When you say La ilaha illallah, they have conditions. If you believe in La ilaha illallah, then you must certainly believe that this God is wiser than not to send us a prophet to guide us. And He is wiser than not to send after a prophet a guide. And إنك أنت المنذر ولكل قوم هاد. That you are the warner, and to every people there is a guide. The Imam is that guide. So the Imam says these words, La ilaha illallah, give you that protection, however, with its conditions, and I am of these conditions. And this is the most important thing. This concept of following all the conditions of Allah, otherwise what makes us any different, for example, from the Jews or the Christians, who accepted a part of the faith and rejected a part of the faith. They accepted a part and they rejected a part. The Jews, same thing. They accepted a part, this part sounds good, this part sounds good, but the rest, we're not happy with that. And the majority of the Muslims, it's the same thing. They accept a part of the faith and they reject a part of the faith. And they don't accept it. The Imam cemented the idea of having the Imam cemented the idea of believing in this Imam and this Wali and this guardian that must be adhered to. Otherwise you would be ultimately at loss. And this is what the Holy Prophet obviously speaks about and pushes towards in his final words, Kitab Allah wa atrati ahla bayti, that he tells the people that are left behind these two weighty things. And Imam Al-Ridha salawatullahi alayhi, he was the proponent of this idea so many years after the Holy Prophet, and was able to give the people this clear image through his knowledge and through his akhlaq. We mentioned yesterday a tradition of the Imam where the Imam salawatullah alayhi, he says that the brain of, or the aql, the intellect of the Muslim is not complete until it has 10 attributes. And this is one of the lessons that is taught of the Imam. However, there is so many more. Honestly, specifically with Ali ibn Musa Ridha, we have so much information and books and text. Ayun al-Akhbar, the book for Sheikh al-Saduq, this is enough. If anyone has access to this, and it's a book that's been translated into English and into Farsi and obviously written in Arabic, this is the sort of books that we need to read about, and they have so much information regarding the debates the Imam has with these people. For example, the akhlaq of the Imam, the actions of the Imam, so many stories regarding the Imam. And this is one of the hadith that I mentioned I wasn't able to finish, However, he says لا يتم عقل امرئ مسلم حتى تكون فيه عشرة خصال. That the intellect of the Muslim will not be complete until it has 10 attributes. The first attribute is الخير منه مأمول والشر منه مأمون. He says that goodness is always expected of him, that you should have this character. And I mentioned this last night. However, I don't think there's any harm in going over just quickly the first 10 attributes, when he says that basically be a personality where people see you and they know that the good and only the good will come from you. They expect the good from you because you're the sort of person that is that. وَالشَّرُّ مِنْهُ مَأْمُونَ. The people see you, and there's so many examples of the Imams, specifically with the Imam Al-Ridha, where a servant of his accidentally harms the Imam with an item. I think it was an item where it was carrying the water for wudu, and it breaks and they harm the Imam by it. And the Imam allows them to be free. He allows the servant to go freely rather than punish the servant in that way. Even if you notice the way that his companions sometimes speak to the Imam, attempt to advise the Imam, never does he return their advice, even though it's incorrect and it's wrong, with ill will. On the contrary, he reciprocates the advice, or he pays them back with forgiveness, never with something evil. And the people know this. So for example, the believer has to be someone who the evil from him, people feel secure from his evil. يستكثر قليل الخير من غيره ويستقل كثير الخير من نفسه. So when he sees a person do a small good act, he feels that it's such a great act, a huge act. Wow, this person has done it, and it might be something very small, but he sees that it is something big. And when he does something big, he sees that it is something small. This is the akhlaq of the Imams. If you notice, even the Imams, when they read the dua, it wasn't just they said, oh, I'll teach you this dua. No, the people would hear the Imam reading the dua and crying, and begging Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and in sujood, and they would be amazed, they would be shocked. They say, Abna Rasulullah, if you were crying like this and asking Allah, what chance do we have? And the Imam tells him, Imam al-Sajjad alayhi salam, have you not read in the Quran, La ansaba baynahum, on the day of judgment? There's no relation. Don't tell me, Abna Rasulullah. On the day of judgment, there's no relation. It's you and your deeds. That's what the Imam is teaching. He's teaching something very important. He's teaching equality. He's teaching the importance of us having hope in the mercy of Allah, and never, ever having and never ever feeling safe from the plot of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Al-aman min makrillah. That we should never feel that I've done enough, that's it, I've done my thing, I've gone to Hajj, I've gone to Ziyarah, everything's good. I pray, others don't pray. I wear hijab, others don't wear hijab. You should never have that feeling. And so he says that when he does a good deed, you know, when we do a good deed and we expect thanks, we expect someone to come and praise us, we expect an award, that this is what I did, whatever it was. You know, I came and I gave a lecture, I deserve the greatest accolades. And if that people don't give me the greatest accolades, I get upset. That when I walk up, this person didn't give me respect, for example. Or if I do the smallest good deed for someone, I want thanks from them. So if you're doing the action for that person, you're losing your reward with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're losing your reward with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Doesn't Allah say, I am the greatest partner? He says that I never forgive the sin of shirk. وَأَنَا خَيْرُ شَرِيكٍ. That I am the best partner. Why? If someone takes a partner in me, I want no part of the dividends. I give it all to the person you've taken partner with. So if you say, I'm going to do this good deed for this person and for Allah, then Allah says, I don't want no part of it. Let the other person have all of the rewards. That He won't accept anything of your action. And so he sees his actions as small. لا يسأم من طلب الحوائج إليه ولا يمل من طلب العلم طول ظهره. That he doesn't get annoyed when people ask him for something. I need a favor, I need you to do something. He doesn't get annoyed, and he doesn't get bored from gaining knowledge his whole life. And then the Imam says, we mentioned, الفقر في الله أحب إليه من الغنى. that he would rather be poor with Allah than be rich. He would rather be somebody that have poverty with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and rather than to be rich. Why? It all comes down to perspective. That the perspective that we view when we look at poverty and we look at richness, we look at it from the incorrect perspective. The most correct perspective is, as the saying of Amir al-Mu'mineen says, إِنَّ الْغِنَى وَالْفَقْرَ بَعْدَ الْعَرْضِ عَلَى اللَّهِ. So you can't say somebody is rich or somebody is poor until you see them on the Day of Judgment. If he's rich on the Day of Judgment, then he's rich. And if he's poor on the Day of Judgment, then he's poor. When the Prophet tells him, may I tell you who the muflis is, who the bankrupt is? And they say, who is the bankrupt, Ya Rasulullah? The person with no money. He says, no, the bankrupt is the one who does good in this world, destroys it with sin on the Day of Judgment. This is the muflis. The one who's standing on the Day of Judgment and he's bankrupt because he had all of these good deeds done and he destroyed it with the amount of sin that he did. So he ends up going there because this is what a bankrupt person does, right? They think they have all of this wealth, the investment is there, and when it gets destroyed and they lose it, they've lost it accidentally and will move on. He says, humility with Allah is better than him. Better, the believer, the Muslim, this is one of the attributes. He would rather be humble as a believer in Allah than someone who is mighty with the enemy of Allah. And these are the choices that we make every day within our lives. Very good example. And every time some incident happens, like these attacks that we hear about around the world, and the media immediately starts to release stories. Muslims are scared of repercussions. Muslims don't know what's going to happen after this. They may be attacked. They may be sworn at in the street. They may be, I don't know what. And then people start to come up with stories on Facebook and the internet. They type them up that I was with a lady that was wearing hijab and someone swore at her and then I protected her, and the old hashtag ride with me and all the rest of it. The point is, people see this and they feel, oh my God, I'm being humiliated because I'm a Muslim. Maybe it's time I take off my hijab. Then I can be, for example, mighty with the non-Muslim. Wal-'iyadhu billah. The believer doesn't look like this. The believer doesn't perceive it like this. He perceives that humility as might. Why? It's because I'm doing it for my faith and my belief in Allah. I'm on the right side. It doesn't matter. This isn't humiliation. On the contrary, this is might. Why? Because it's humiliation for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then it's worthy humiliation. Whereas the true perspective is might with the enemy, that's the real humiliation. You think and you feel you're mighty for that period, but it's nothing. And it disappears. And the problem is when you lose it, you never come back. And we hear about it every year when we remember the martyrdom of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, Sayyid al-Shuhada, salawatullahi alayh. And we hear about these people that fought against the Imam of the people, the ones that on their dead bodies after they had been killed by the army of the Imam. They never even got to finish the war. These are the people, the agents of Ibn Ziyad, the soldiers of Umar ibn Sa'ad, and they find in their knapsack, in their bag, a handful of dates from Ibn Ziyad. That was their payment to go and kill Imam al-Hussein. So for that period that they had the handful of dates, they thought, yes, I have a handful of dates from the Amir. And they thought they were happy, and look where they ended up. Amongst other stories, the story of Abdullah al-Ja'fari, and so on and so forth, who, for that period, he could have died on that day, instead he dies the next day. However, the next day when he dies, he's dying fleeing from Ibn Ziyad. If he had died on the day of Ashura and obeyed Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, he would be in paradise and be someone that's remembered. Someone who our ulama would come up and say, may our soul be a ransom to you, oh Abdullah al-Ja'fari, if he did. But he never ended up doing that. He says, وَالْخُمُولْ أَشْهَى إِلَيْهِ مِنَ الشُّهْرَةِ. That he loves to be the unknown soldier. He doesn't want to be somebody who is known. He rathers to be a person that is unknown. He doesn't want to be famous. As long as he's famous in the eyes of Allah, that's what's important. Not famous amongst the people and always looking for a good PR stunt to show himself that, oh, this is what I did, this is what I built, I want my name on this building and my name on that building, this is my foundation, this is my mu'assasa, whatever it is, my establishment, and this is what I have done. And create this hype around themselves, this is something that's far from the brain of the what? The Muslim. He's not even talking about the mu'min, which is the next stage up. And then finally he says, al-ashira. He says, al-ashira wa mal-ashira. He says the 10th, and what is the 10th? The final attribute. He says, the 10th, when they ask him what is it, he says, لا يرى أحد إلا قال هو خير مني وأتقى. That he never sees a single person except he says about him, any person, not a alim, not somebody who has better lineage, but any person that he sees. He says, this person is better than me and he is more pious. He says, because إنما الناس رجلان. رجل خير منه وأتقى ورجل شر منه وأدنى. He says, men are two types. One is more pious and better than you, and one is less pious and worse than you. Simple as that. It's either he's going to be that, or maybe there's the third option that someone is exactly the same as you in deeds, which is highly unlikely. However, the Imam says people are two, they're either this or they're that. And then he says, فَإِذَا لَقَى الَّذِي شَرٌّ مِّنْهُ وَأَدْنَى قَالَ. He says, قَالَ لَعَلَّ خَيْرُ هَذَا بَاطِنٌ. He says, وَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَهُ. He says, when he sees the person who is lower than him, he thinks of this person's not as pious as me, for example. Or he sees clearly this person is a sinful person. He says that perhaps Allah has hidden his good. He has hidden his good, and this is better for him. And then he says, for I know my bad. Perhaps Allah has hidden my bad and shown my good, and this is worse for me. And then he goes on to say, if you see the one who is better than you, then follow him. Be humble before him. For the one who is humble before the one who is better than him and more pious, this is the way you should look at all, as he says in the first statement, at your believing brothers. And this is the most difficult, without a doubt. The one who is more pious and better, if you follow him, he says, then his goodness will be complete and he will be a master of his people, the person who is like that. Now if we go back to just the middle section of the statement, where the Imam says when he sees the person that is worse than him, that he says perhaps Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has hidden the good within him and this is better for him. But within me, he's brought the good out and he's hidden the bad, and perhaps this is worse for me. What does this mean? Inshallah, I'll run out of time. We'll finish it up with just a small story that will help explain the meaning of, inshallah, or bring forth some sort of explanation or perspective on the meaning of what the Imam means by this. That sometimes a person seems bad, but Allah has hidden his bad, has hidden the good within him, and this is better for him. And sometimes a person seems good, but really he is bad, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings out his good, and perhaps this is bad for him. There's a story of a man, and it's a famous story, in the city of Mashhad. He wants to go to the Hajj. So he says, I need to go to the Hajj, but I'm going to leave my family behind. So I need somebody to look after my family. Who's good to look after my family? He asks the people. They say, there's Hajj Ali al-Fulani. This Hajj Ali is the best guy. Lives in Mashhad. He's always in the shrine of Imam Al-Ridha. Most pious man. Everyone sees him pray as much as he prays. Hand the affair of your family over to him. So the man says, perfect. He tells him that this is my house. This is who my family is. Can you please just bring them food, make sure they don't need anything, and inshallah when I come back. And in those days they go to Hajj, it takes them months to get to the Hajj and months to get back. And so he leaves to the Hajj. Hajj Ali al-Fulani looks after the family every day. He goes and he brings to them food. One day when he goes in to bring the food, the door is open. So he just says, Ya Allah, and walks in and he sees the wife of the man that went to the Hajj. She's not wearing hijab. Hair's flowing. He sees her and instantly he feels that feeling in his heart, I need this lady, I want this lady. She's a married woman. Wal-'iyadhu billah. I want this lady. And he gets like the aqda in his heart. The saham min siham iblis. That arrow from Iblis, that's it, I want that lady. He drops the food, he leaves. As he walks away, he's pious. He feels, what have I done? I've destroyed everything. He feels like he's destroyed everything he's done in his life. He goes, I only have one option, I'll go to the Imam. He goes into the shrine of Imam Ridha. Yeah, Imam Ridha, what have I done? I've been trusted with this person's family. I saw his wife. I feel like my heart is sealed. I feel like I've destroyed everything in my faith. As he's crying and upset, he falls asleep and he sees a dream, and the Imam tells him, you have to go and see Sheikh Al-Fulani in Isfahan. Sheikh X, you must go see him in Isfahan, he'll solve your problem. So Hajj Ali leaves Mashhad and he goes to Isfahan. He gets to Isfahan, he asks them about this Sheikh. He says to them, where is this Sheikh? So and so, I need to go and see him. They go, that guy. Why do you want to go see that guy? They say, why? He says, this guy's a murtad. He was a Muslim and now he lives among the Armenians. Because back in those days, there was different quarters in the city. You've got even in terms of, this is part of the Islamic architecture of places of trade to promote perfection and productivity and competition. It was common to, for example, have an area where all of the blacksmiths are, an area where all the butchers are, an area where all the... And this is part of the economic architecture in the Islamic realm. And this is how it was. They also had racial sectors, which was normal. The Muslims live amongst the Muslims, the Jews live amongst the Jews, Armenian Christians amongst the Armenians, so on and so forth, but all in coexistence and amongst one another. And this was normal in the Islamic realm. It's not something that was odd. Obviously, Islam is this type of religion. And so when he goes into Isfahan, he asks, and they tell him, this man is someone that's away from Islam. Why do you want to see him? He asks another person, I want to see this Sheikh. They say, that Sheikh keeps companions. He keeps a little boy as a companion. He has this little boy that's always with him, accusing him of pedophilia, of homosexuality. Asks another person, this Sheikh, he says, this Sheikh, why do you want to go see him? This Sheikh is a drunk. We've seen him, he drinks wine. He says, I have to see him. I saw him in my dream. The Imam told me to see him. He goes and he enters the Armenian quarter and he finds this man sitting, and next to him is a little boy, and on the table he's got a bottle that looks like a bottle of wine and a glass. And he walks in and he says to him, look, perhaps I've come to the wrong place, but I saw a dream that I need to come and see you. But before, I just want to know, why are you living amongst the Armenians? Go and live with the Muslims. He says to him, I'm living here because this is where my family house was. This used to be a Muslim area. And then the Armenians moved in. We didn't want to leave. I didn't want to move, so I remained here. He says, okay, and what about the little boy that you keep as a companion? He says, this is my nephew. My brother died, and I look after him. He says, all right, I understand that as well. But why do you drink wine? He says, this is not wine, this is juice. And it's in a bottle. He says, but why would you put it in a bottle that looks like a bottle of wine? People think bad of you. He says, is it better for people to think bad of me, and Allah knows what's in my heart, or for people to think good of you and you betray your friend with his wife? He gets amazed. How did this man know? This man is a pious man. People think of him badly. He doesn't care what they think of him. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it seem as if the bad of his is out because it's better for him. Or is it better for people to think that you are pious, but then when it comes to the test, you break? And this is that attribute of the believer. Afwan, Sayyidna, I've taken into your time. Astaghfirullah. And so, ultimately, this is the 10th thing. And it's the hardest thing. To believe that everyone you see is better, and if they're not better, to see that there's goodness in the fact that maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has hidden their good, and be warned, maybe it's not very good for you, that the good comes out and people think of you as good, because maybe you can't handle the test that you go through. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us of the people, or guide us onto the ziyarah of Imam Ridha, salawatullahi alayh. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the appearance of our holy Imam, have mercy on our dead, cure our sick, fulfill our debts. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. رحم الله من قرأ سورة المباركة الفاتحة وأهدى ثوابها إلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات تسبقها الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد.